Hello my very good friends, Andy here for What Culture Wrestling, back again with something a little bit different for you beautiful bastards here on the Wrestling Channel, a game review for Fire Pro Wrestling World on PlayStation 4. Originally released on PC last year, it came out on PS4 in the EU on September 28th, and the awesome folks over at Chunsoft, the developers, were lovely enough to send us over a copy to review. And as perhaps the What Culture office's biggest wrestling nerd, I'm going to take you through what works, what doesn't work, and how the game plays as a whole. To do that, I'm going to pinch the great man Simon Miller's ups and downs format. Now, while he's busy Scrooge McDucking and all that WWE 2K19 advertising money, he can't exactly be seen promoting the competition, so I'm sorry guys, you're stuck with me instead. But hey, enough about you guys being mad about this clear bald guy downgrade. Here's your review for Fire Pro Wrestling World on PS4. So as a complete newcomer to the Fire Pro series and someone whose main wrestling gaming experience comes through the 2K series and its predecessors, this game came with quite the learning curve. This is an entirely different beast to the big budget WWE productions, and not only visually, where really it couldn't be any more different, but also in terms of gameplay. When you're going through one of these incredibly rich, deep and complex matches, you need to be a bit more methodical, you need to be careful. You can't just go in and button mash. Every grapple needs to be timed, and every strike needs to be judged according to your distance and your angle relative to your opponent. This takes a while to get used to, and honestly, in your first few matches you are going to get the piss knocked out of you, but after a few hours it'll all start coming together, and by the end you'll be absolutely flowing through the game, making it a really enjoyable experience, and honestly, super rewarding. That makes it an up. Yeah, there is a learning curve, but conquering it's just really satisfying, and there's a level of depth that just isn't present in other wrestling games. So the game has a real strategic approach to it, much like a big New Japan main event. And one of the main byproducts of this is that the wrestling matches actually feel like, well, actual real-life wrestling matches, particularly in terms of pacing. There's a real ebb and flow to these bouts. You can't just waddle in and start dropping all kinds of big bombs, because that won't work. Instead, you've got to build up to them just like in real life. You'll start off with basic lockups, a long feeling out process, maybe an odd strike battle here or two, and certainly a lot of exploratory grappling. From there, the match will build and build and build. You'll pull off suplexes, throws, other kinds of holds, and then you'll get to the closing stretch where you'll pull out your signatures and your finishers as your opponent gets tired, and it creates a real sense of drama and escalation. What it tends to draw out is those big, dramatic, bombastic New Japan style closing stretches. There's a real sense of progression as the match goes on, and for that, well, that's another up. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I am a newcomer to this series, but from what I understand, one of Fire Pro's biggest pulls has always been its absurdly deep customization, and yeah, it's pretty crazy here as well. This is as surefire and up as you can get, as well the customization options are so vast that they're actually a little bit intimidating to start with. There's just so much you can do here to put your own stamp on the game, and that makes up for the limited starting roster comprised of made-up dudes and New Japan guys. Even with the really simplistic graphical style, you can spend hours upon hours making your own wrestlers out of hundreds and thousands of different combination of parts and colors. But there's more to it. You can make your own rings, you can even make your own bloody referees if you want. And even if you can't be bothered filling out your own rosters, you can just go online and download one of the thousands upon thousands of creations that are already there waiting for you to plug in. It's fantastic. Now, with all this positivity going around so far, I'm afraid I'm gonna have to sully it with one of the biggest downsides, that being the menu system. It's f***ing shit. I get that the dated aesthetics, old-fashioned systems and weird translations are part of Fire Pro's charm. That's all very well, but this interface isn't exactly the most functional thing in the world. It's clunky and awkward to navigate. It isn't always obvious where exactly you're supposed to go to do what you want, and for some reason, going back through the menu system takes a good few split seconds longer than it should, and on top of all this, it's really f***ing ugly. Down. And straight from that down into another. Now, a big part of Fire Pro's appeal is that while it is very threadbare, you learn how to make your own fun via the ridiculously deep match system and the creation suite. But if we're being honest, there is a real lack of features and content in this game. There are only a handful of match types, the other modes are really basic, and the tutorials are buried within that bad menu system. Now, I like a challenge, but this is definitely going to put some people off. Mark this as a very light down. I don't necessarily think that Fire Pro needs to add a whole boatload of features just to appease the empty calories crowd, and it does have a few bells and whistles here and there, but let's be honest, a few extra bits and pieces to do would be nice, and would make it a lot more accessible for new players. Now, the game's equivalent of a story or career mode is called Fighting Road, and in it, you play as a young New Japan hopeful looking to work your way up the card, making friends and enemies along the way while grinding your stats. In other words, it's pretty typical wrestling gaming fare. This is a pretty effective framework. It really gives you something else to do outside of the usual array of exhibition matches, and while basic, it totally works. The story is delivered much like a visual novel in that you'll have still images of New Japan wrestlers blurting out unvoiced lines of dialogue that you kind of just cycle through. Now, that is very minimalist, but so is the game itself, so it totally fits, and there's some really cool faction warfare stuff in there, particularly towards the end. Nobody's buying Fire Pro World for a big Hollywood-style story, the kind of which you're probably going to get in WWE 2K19. What you want is a roadmap to move from match to match, giving the game a greater sense of purpose. That's exactly what I wanted, that's exactly what I got, so it's definitely an up. And you know what, we're going to finish on another positive: charm. This game has boatloads of it. It leaks from every single pixel. It's in everything you do, from competing in landmine death matches to making your own characters, and it really sets the game apart. I mean, sure, yeah, if you're coming over from big budget AAA titles, then yeah, it does take a while to get used to, and Fire Pro does look kind of unpolished, but that's kind of the point. This unique style has barely changed throughout the series' entire lifespan. It's weird, it's kooky, it's rough around the edges, and it's absolutely beautiful. Every minute you spend playing this game, you will feel the pure heart that Spike Chunsoft put into developing it. It's not glossy, it's not sterile, and while it might be almost 30 years old, the series still somehow feels like a breath of fresh air. That, in my book, is a definite up. So there we are then, 5 ups and 2 downs, but if you're looking for a score more in line with, you know, wrestling, let's say 4.25 stars. Something like that. Fire Pro Wrestling World is not going to be a game for everyone. It's not particularly accessible and it is niche, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. It's not trying to be some mass market production, and it's stronger because of it. If you're looking for a minimal but rich, rewarding and deep wrestling experience with a unique aesthetic and unbelievable customization, then this is the game for you. But anyway guys, that's enough of me now blabbering on. I want to hear what you think. Are you interested in Fire Pro? Have you played it? Do you enjoy it? And how do you rate it compared to the 2K series? Let us know down in the comments section below. And once you've done that, head on over to whatculture.com/WWE, where you'll find all manner of great articles written by the likes of Michael Hamflett, Jamie Kennedy, Benjamin Richardson, and my dad, Michael Sidgwick. You'll have a great time. I've been Andy, and I'll see you later.